It's the end of day one. Wow, we made it. And it's been, I think, a tradition now to have Mayor Rex Richardson from Long Beach come and say a few words. And he's, for my money, one of the most interesting, most visionary young politicians in the United States today. As many of you know, he was elected mayor at the end of 2022. He's very young, but he had a very long career on the city council and as vice mayor of Long Beach. But under his leadership over the past few years, Long Beach, this great city to the south here, has launched Elevate 22. It's a really important infrastructure development program tied to the Olympics and long-term mobility transportation, and the Grow Long Beach economic strategy, and I'm sure he's going to talk about it. But it aligns advanced manufacturing, particularly in aerospace, with sustainable communities. And he doesn't only focus on big tech, but Mayor Richardson brings a real social justice lens to everything he does in the city, particularly in housing. And that's affordable housing, I think, is one of his really big signature programs. So join me in welcoming Mayor Richardson to promotion.
All right, it's here for John. Thanks so much for having me back here to join you at Commotion. I like visiting Commotion because I get to see my friends from throughout my career. Friends obviously from Long Beach, friends from SCAG. So I learned so much. SCAG in the house. Friends from SCAG learned so much from my time when I was SCAG chair in a very difficult time. I mean, a board of like 80 elected officials negotiating housing policy and transportation and housing numbers, all on Zoom during a pandemic while you're attempting to get 6 counties from all across the political spectrum to agree that institutional racism was a public health crisis. Very difficult, very difficult. But we actually got that done. We got near unanimous vote on most of those things. So it's great to be back here at Commotion LA. This is my third time speaking with you. First time was back during the pandemic. So we were talking about just the way that cities were rethinking the very definition of resilience and how you prepare for resilience. It was no longer about preparing for the big one. It was how do you prepare for a global pandemic? How do you prepare for a shifting economy when people just stop coming to work, or when you've designed your downtowns for office space and it's no longer utilized? So how do we redefine resilience? And then I came back, when I was mayor, I came back and spoke with you, I think it was last year. It was last year. We had a good time, and we really talked about the transition that Long Beach is undergoing, as Long Beach is a city with, our history is largely, a lot of our economic history was made up of either Navy, which when they pulled out, we had to shift to becoming a big port town. And now our big transition is we're a big oil town. For the last 100 years, we sit on top of the biggest oil field in North America, the Wilmington oil field. Those 4 man-made islands they're not tourist resorts, they're not hotels, I know they look like they are. That's actually for oil production, as California's moving away and focused on decarbonization. That brings a big question about the transformation of our Long Beach economy. We talked a little bit about that last year and how we have to get ahead of it and lean into a more sustainable economy for our city. And that is the impetus for our Grow Long Beach economic development strategy. And I'm proud to say that the strategy is working. We're seeing real progress. In the last 2.5 years since becoming mayor and focusing on economic growth and transitioning to a more sustainable economy, we've seen more than 4,000 new jobs come to our city in industries like engineering and advanced manufacturing, clean technology. We're really proud of some of that progress since becoming mayor. Just a few highlights. We announced since last year that Ford Motor Company announced that they opened their new Advanced Electric Vehicle Development Center. So all their R&D for the future generation of electric vehicles for Ford, they're betting big on EV. All that R&D is taking place in Long Beach now. And so, that means, engineers and techs coming out of Long Beach State or coming out of Long Beach City College have the opportunity to work on really innovative stuff. And we toured their manufacturing facility. It looks a little bit like, I would imagine, Tony Stark's laboratory. So, those are some of the opportunities we're seeing. Also, 2 years ago, at my very first stay in the city, we walked out a startup company called Vast, who stood on stage and said, we're committing to build the world's first commercial space station. They had about 40 employees, and they made a pledge to get to 500 employees, or 700 employees in 5 years was their pledge. 2 years later, we walked them out on stage at this year's State of the City, and they said, Mayor, we have to let you down. We actually got to 1,000 employees in 2 years. So 1,000 employees in 2 years, and they just successfully launched the prototype of Haven 1, their very first commercially funded space station. So they're on track to bid and compete to replace the ISS. They're on track. They'll be the only company competing that actually has successfully launched an article to space, and they will have that under their belt, entirely built in the city of Long Beach. So I think the premise of what I want to talk about today, I think we want to talk about some of the opportunities we have to leverage mobility. Since we're in a room full of folks who believe in mobility, how mobility can really be an expression and a vehicle for our values. When we design for better systems that are more inclusive, for more people, we're really designing for equity. We're designing for inclusion. We're designing for belonging. We invest in things like zero-emission freight corridors, which we'll talk about, shipping corridors, digital networks. What we're talking about is a shared vision where everyone can thrive. We'll have some opportunities today to talk a little bit about what's happening in Long Beach, what's happening in our region, and what's happening around the globe. I walked in and heard a little bit of the last panel. The things they're discussing, the things we're doing here in the region will shape and impact the world. Mobility has been intertwined with justice in America, with equity, the advancement of our values, opportunities, and possibility. When you think of the Montgomery bus boycotts, and when you think of Rosa Parks, it was a lot more than just not giving up your seat. That was a vehicle for advancing civil rights. When you think of A. Philip Randolph and the Brotherhood of the Sleeping Car Porters, that was a lot more than just standing up for dignity in that moment. It was showing the power, the impact of collective power when we organize. And when we think of these big moments in our lives, a lot of times it connects to movement. And personally, in my own life, I can remember how mobility and movement shaped my very values as an individual and as mayor. When I was young, my mother was a welder. She was actually a welder on the assembly line, a union welder for General Motors. She worked in a plant in Wentzville, Missouri. And this was the 1980s, early 90s, and I'll never forget what it was like when, you're invited to go visit the plant. So it was myself, my younger brother, who's about 4 years younger than me, my sister. When we visited the plant, you walk in, it's a big factory. They take you through all the PPE and the training. You put on the helmet's too big, you put on the goggles, you put on all those things, you stay within the yellow lines. You smell the metal. As you're walking in, you're seeing through those goggles, the sparks flying. You're hearing the machinery. And then, as my mom shows the workplace, where she set up her workstation and how she's laughing and joking and teasing with her coworkers. You feel the pride that your mom builds something. She's a builder. She builds cars. This is who she is, part of her identity. And it's a part of my identity. So you feel that pride that your mom builds things. And I remember when the economy changed and we needed to pivot. And that was no longer part of our identity, working in the automotive industry. We moved around a little bit, and we ended up, I'll never forget that Greyhound bus ride from Alabama to California. So this was a long bus ride. I remember carrying with me on that bus ride, it was a black and red drawstring backpack. It said DARE on the front of it. I'm dating myself. People remember DARE, keep kids off drugs. Drawstring backpack, and filled in that backpack was comic books. It was Death and Return of Superman, and it was X-Men Age of Apocalypse. I was ready for my reading on that trip. I remember the smell. What was the smell? Sandwiches that we made for the trip and fried chicken, wrapped in foil. Why fried chicken? A bus ride from Alabama to California is a long ride, and fried chicken lasts a long time. So that was the diet. I also remember we were transferring buses, because you transfer a lot of buses to move from Alabama to California. And while I was transferring the buses, something devastating happened. I left my backpack full of those comic books. Now, I don't know, 9 years old maybe, 9 or 10 years old, and I had collected every one of those comic books myself, right? Like, I knew every issue, and so I was a little devastated. And I remember my mom said, hey, sometimes we lose things, but guess what? We keep moving, right? And that's what we did. We kept on moving. We ended up in what became my home, Southern California, where we put down our roots and began to rebuild our lives here. And I think we did okay. That story, for me, I never forget, because it represented so much. It represented not just, that bus ride was really a vehicle for economic change. It was a vehicle for building hope and resilience in my family. It was a shared moment we'll never forget. It was on a bus. So many moments in our nation's history are connected to mobility. And that same spirit drives my work as mayor and drives many of our work today. When I think of the ways as mayor of Long Beach that we can impact the world, the first opportunity to really use mobility as a way to expand our shared values around the world is at the port, where Port of Long Beach, combined with Los Angeles, 43% of everything that comes in the United States comes through our combined seaports. And we, in this moment, we set our own local policy. This is unique in that, I visited most recently, I was in Rio for C40, World Climate Mayors convening. And the elephant in the room was that we know that the presidential administration was planning to not attend the upcoming COP30. And in fact, efforts were going to be taking place to advocate against world climate policy. And so in that moment, folks are looking for ways that America can continue to share our values. And that and one big vehicle for that is through governors and mayors who have autonomy to set their own policy that can impact the world. And in Long Beach, we have that ability at the Port of Long Beach. And so some of the things that we're doing that will have an impact on the world, we are committing through our infrastructure to move 40% of our cargo by rail. And through a project called the Pier B On-Dock Rail Facilitation Project, we will be able to get right to about 40% by 2031, 2032. That's significant. For every truck that you take off the road, those are impacts on neighborhoods, the poor air quality you're improving. You're increasing your capacity, your throughput, to continue to demonstrate that your environmental progress and your economic progress don't have to be mutually exclusive. In fact, the way we're more efficient and cleaner will actually allow us to continue to demonstrate our leadership. We also are maintaining our commitment, despite what happens in Washington, D.C., we're maintaining our commitment to 100% zero-emission cargo handling equipment by 2030. This is a commitment that we have made very publicly. This means real equipment, real tractors, real emissions, real investment taking place at our port. But one of the largest opportunities we have to really impact the world is our focus on establishing the world's first green shipping corridor. What does that mean? So the largest corridor is between Long Beach, LA, Shanghai, and Singapore. Now, there are trade routes all around the world. This is the largest. And for many years, there's been an open question. When can we actually get to alignment between America and Asia, between Long Beach, LA, Shanghai, Singapore, about one single alternative fuel source for shipping? And we've had discussions for many years, and based on our own local politics, we've never really landed on anything. And most recently, we came to a decision. We landed on methanol. It's cleaner than ammonia. It's available. And so we made that choice. Now, because we made local decisions, a local port, in Asia, 2 local ports in Malaysia, 2 local ports in the United States. A whole system is now being triggered. This means ordering more ships that are powered by methanol. I mean, you're talking potentially billions of dollars of investment now. You're talking about union infrastructure being placed at both ports, opportunities to make investments into bunkering and transmission and production, an entire ecosystem created because local decisions were made. And if it's successful between Long Beach, Los Angeles, Singapore, Shanghai, this won't be the only green shipping corridor in the world. Others will take note. And we can use our own local powers to incentivize the adoption of these fuels. Shipping makes up a significant part of the world's emissions. And if we can just make that local decision to impact shipping around the world, this will be an opportunity for us to set a chain effect, a ripple effect around the globe. There's also, we have to think about how we position our port to thrive in the century. One thing that I do as mayor, I don't know who else's job it is to ask a question like, where's Long Beach going to be in 100 years? Well, I don't know what industries are still going to exist, but I can tell you, the coastline may change, but we'll still be a beach city. That beach will still be there in 100 years. It may look a little different in the peninsula, but we will be a beach city. How do we invest in that coastline to make sure that we're creating opportunities for people? It's clean. It's something that's highlighted around the world as an iconic destination. And I'm willing to bet in 100 years the port will be there. Now the question, with technology and automation, AI, will workers be in that port? I've seen ports around the world. Sure, they may be zero emission, but not a single human was operating that port. And I think that port should be organized for public good. I think the public should benefit from a public port. So I think we need to have humans that operate our port. And so in order to achieve that, we have to create opportunities in the future. And one such opportunity for us is Pier Wind. Pier Wind is an opportunity for us to really position Long Beach as a Pacific hub for offshore wind. And it helps California achieve its 25 gigawatt of renewable power in our state. What does that mean for us? It means essentially taking the land that we have, the space that we have, creating a floating offshore wind manufacturing and assembly pier where as many as 10,000 jobs can build and deploy these large, I'm talking the size of Eiffel Tower, these large offshore wind turbines, and build them, assemble them, and actually deploy them off the West Coast. That's a part of the future, but we have to lay the infrastructure for that now. It's a real project. The most recent climate bond set aside $400 million in the state of California to make projects like Pier Wind successful. So that's a real opportunity that we have to invest in. I think we also have to think about ways that Long Beach can help impact our region. And I'll just say something briefly on housing because, I'm chair of mayors and CEOs for U.S. housing investment, and housing is such a big part of my priorities as a council member, now as mayor. But, most recently we did something really big in our region. We created a new housing finance agency for all 88 jurisdictions. It's called LACASA, LA County Affordable Housing Solutions Agency. This is getting stakeholders from all across the county to come together and have one conversation about the biggest crisis facing our region, our affordability in housing. And since we've established this agency, we've come together and passed the countywide measure, LA County Measure A, which dedicates more than $400 million a year to the agency to help boost housing. And most recently, we hit a really big milestone. We passed our first 5-year funding plan, which enables us and sets a target of accelerating 20,000 housing units in the next 5 years. And how we're able to get there is because we created a table that doesn't exist anywhere else. We have experts in production, preservation, and prevention, homelessness prevention, all at one table with representatives from large cities, small cities, medium-sized cities in the county, all having one conversation at one table. It doesn't exist anywhere else. A board like that doesn't exist at Metro, at AQMD, which, I respect all those boards, but this one is more challenging with 22 members, but you have everyone at the table having one conversation. The last big opportunity I think that we have in Long Beach to impact the world is in 2028. So we know this is the third time the LA region will host the Olympic Games, the first time that we're going to host the Olympic and Paralympic Games together. Long Beach will play a significant role there. We have 18 Olympic and Paralympic sports, and we're proud of that. We participated in 32 and 84. We built Marine Stadium for rowing in 32, and 84 we played a role, but this is a much more significant role that we're playing. We'll be featuring events like water polo and sailing and rowing and beach volleyball, handball, marathon swimming, a number of events. 18 events across Olympic and Paralympics. And so, sure, there'll be a couple months of competition going on in Long Beach, but the Olympic moment that we have is really how do we rethink our systems to leave better systems in place for the people who use those systems for decades to come. How can we leverage this moment to really advance our shared values around mobility and equity? I heard it earlier when we introduced, it was Elevate 28, it's our capital improvement program. We essentially looked at between when we came into office, the beginning of 2023 and 2028, what's our existing infrastructure plan and how can we plan that better to create a broader impact on our community? And so we had about $500 million set aside in infrastructure investments, but by planning together, we leveraged it to $1 billion of infrastructure between 2023 and 2028. We're talking road improvement, pedestrian improvements, public facilities, parks, beaches, open space. And this $1 billion infrastructure plan will endure well beyond 2028. This is an opportunity for us to look at systems like our light rail. We are the first, the A line is the very first light rail in Metro. It's also the longest light rail anywhere in America. It's the A line, what used to be called the Blue Line. Well, we can improve ridership on Blue Line if we just improve the cadence and the speed in which the train gets from downtown Long Beach to downtown LA. It just takes too long. If people, the trains shouldn't have to stop at the stoplight. I mean, a train stopping at a stoplight kind of defeats the purpose. But if we can talk about signal preemption and signal prioritization and increase the speed in which folks can get from LA to Long Beach to LA, we can have a better system that we even place. So that's one of the things we can prioritize between now and 2028. Signal preemption, signal prioritization, more trains, faster trains, better mobility. Last mile connectivity. There's opportunities, sure, in our region, but the idea is you just want people to get to Long Beach and be able to move around all our venues very seamlessly. Let's get over to Queen Mary Island and the new waterfront amphitheater that just passed the Planning Commission to be open next year. I hope you come visit us for our 10,000 seat amphitheater next to Queen Mary. But how do you move people from there down to Belmont Shore to Marine Stadium where road is going to take place, along the coastline where marathon swimming takes place, back down to the Pike, which will be activated? How do you move people around? So we're talking about how do we do more transit, public transit, free transit? How do you do bikes, scooters, walkability? All of those things are possible. We're talking blue-green mobility. Folks have talked a lot about the water taxi between Long Beach and San Pedro, which is a cool idea and we support it. But we also support the big idea. Let's take water taxis from Long Beach to Pedro, to the South Bay, to Marina Del Rey, to Santa Monica, to Malibu. What would that look like? I bet you we could probably complete that ride in less time than it takes to take Sepulveda on 405 from Malibu to Long Beach. And we know there's going to be mobility issues in the north portion, given the challenges with PCH and what we just all endured and witnessed with the wildfires. So now's an Olympic moment for us to really envision blue-green mobility that's clean and that's fun and gives us something to really leave in place well beyond 2028. Air mobility. Sure, not everybody's crazy about, more helicopters or whatever it is, but I'm excited to see what's possible with air taxis and zero-emission flight. I think we will have demonstrations in place. They will connect to Long Beach between now and 2028, and it will be forever changed. Once you start it, it will never end. It will accelerate air mobility to where it's quieter and it leaves it makes a better impact on our environment overall. We have to test it. Safer streets, bike networks, all of those things. So in general, these are the Olympic moments this is the Olympic moment that we have to really re-envision all of our systems to leave a greater impact on for the residents who live here. And all of this is the vehicle is mobility. That's really the conversation, and that's a vehicle for us to advance our shared values. So we have this moment. All of us are here. We'll all be here over the next few years, Lord willing. How are we going to step up in this moment? What is going to be our legacy in this moment that we really look back and say that mayors and transit agencies and SCAG and all of us came together and said this was our vision and we were able to accomplish it? Because future generations are going to look back on the 2028 moment and say, what did we do? As leaders of the port, we have other folks around the world are particularly looking for leadership from us in this moment, particularly as many of our common values are being challenged at the federal level. How are we going to step up? And that's the question we have to continue to confront ourselves with, because future generations are counting on us to get it right. So, I want to thank all of you for inviting me here. The next frontier of mobility won't just be, I reject that we're just going to leave it to tech and AI. It's going to be even more human. And we're going to be the ones that have to shape the impact and the legacy that we leave in place. So I want to thank all of you for inviting me out to speak to you one more time for the third year. And I hope you had a great time at Commotion. Let's hear it for everybody participating in Commotion. All right. I think last time we did questions. Did you want to do that this time?
Sure.
All right. Questions?
Don't be shy.
Going once. What you got?
So how do you envision that, startups in Southern California can work with the cities like yours?
Yeah,
In the area of like a safety, city planning.
Mm-hmm. There's a number of accelerators that have come to Long Beach, and we typically work with them and talk with them. But sometimes it's just a matter of sitting down with our economic development team, and we created a position in the mayor's office, deputy mayor of economic development. A lot of times, what we do is have a conversation about business development, a culture of ease, speed, predictability when doing business with the city, and see if there's alignment. And if there is, then we do all that we can to help these startups become successful. I think VAST is a great example. VAST had 40 employees. They were a startup. Today they're north of 1,000, making global news. And it was a bet. It was a risk. When I was the new mayor and the economic development team says, hey, here's an idea. Here's a new group. It was risked. This could have been a startup bankrolled by some crazy billionaire and something crazy happens and make a crazy comment. Every time you take a risk on these startups, you don't know how it's going to work out. But you have to take risks in this moment. And we did. And it's turned out great. It's a great company. They've hired a lot of people in our city. There are 1,000 employees. And they have a successful launch under their belt. And there's a number of those. I would just say, to win is to choose. You can't choose everything. So you pick the industries that you do want to bet on. In Long Beach, we selected 5 industries, right? It's advanced manufacturing, clean tech engineering, that sort of stuff. It's ports, because in 100 years, the port will still be here. I hope people will be in the port, but the port will be here in 100 years, right? We picked tourism because the coastline will be here in 100 years. And then 2 industries that I don't know will be here, but we want it to be here because we value it, are public education and healthcare. 2 industries that, when you ask the question, how will those services be delivered in 100 years, I don't know. It will not look the way that it looks today. And so if we want that to be an important part of our community, we have to take risks, we have to invest in startups, we have to think about innovation. Good question. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Along those lines of, with respect to procurement, can you give a little color on what that process is like in the city of Long Beach?
Yeah, sure. So we went through a whole extreme procurement makeover. We worked with Bloomberg. It's recognized one of the best procurement systems that we have in the region. But essentially, procurement is technically something difficult for newcomers to navigate. And so we actually have brought on navigators to help minority businesses, women-owned businesses, new businesses, local businesses navigate the process. So there's, just like most cities, there's a registration process to seek opportunities. Another part of it is confidence. A lot of people say, well, why would they pick my company? Well, you never know until you get in and see what procurement, what we're looking for. Because believe it or not, people don't want pretentious, vendors. They want things that are authentic, things that are local. They want people who have an opinion, right? And something fresh. And so I would say be confident, shoot your shot, and make sure you tap in with our navigators to help you navigate that process. All right, right here.
I would say for each of you guys, check out Pitch Long Beach. Just
Pitch Long Beach, absolutely.
Pitch Long Beach.
That came out of our, that was a strategy that came out of our, essentially Pitch Long Beach. Sometimes you don't know what you need. And so we opened up like an open sort of RFQ kind of process for people to pitch ideas. And a lot of good things have come out of the Pitch Long Beach process. I think we've gone through a few rounds now. Good suggestion. All right. Well, thanks a lot. Let's hear it for Commotion LA.